Lexington Gold has had a busy year so far in 2023, and this week it's told investors that results of surface sampling program at its Argo project in the United States have confirmed and defined surface gold mineralization. For more on that and the rest of the company's news, I'm delighted to be joined by Chief Executive Dr. Bernard Olivier. So Bernard, from these first set of assays from Argo, is the project worth pursuing?
Good morning, Sarah, and thanks for having me on. Yes, we are very happy with the first set of results. It's really the first work that we've done on Argo. Previously, we focused on the Jones Keystone Laughlin project, where we've, of course, got our resource that we upgraded 3 times, and Jennings Pioneer and Carolina Bell. So we recently completed the surface sampling work, which included significant trenching at Argo because it's got a little bit of an overlayer, overburden over it that we had to go through the trenching process. I think all in all, we did close to 900 meters of trenching over 13 different trenches. And as you can see from today's announcement, some really good results that came back. There's a 22-meter interval that is well over 1 gram per ton gold, which at surface is a very, very good looking interval. And then also some individual samples of well over 10 grams per ton. So yes, the initial work that we've now done on Argo looks very promising.
And what about the rest of the Carolinas projects? Are they good looking? What's the longer term future for them to prove up reserves and sell?
Yes, I think from the start, we've made it quite clear that is our model. It's effectively what Remarco, a TSX company, did extremely well in the Carolinas. They started off with a project very similar to ours, the Hale project, which was also a lot of historical work on it, but very little recent exploration. And in their case, it was quite a long process, but over about a 12-year process, they drilled it out. They did various studies on it, and eventually they sold it to Oceana Gold. So I think that model is pretty much a similar path that we want to take, and we have definitely progressed along that line from, as you could see from the success we've had with Jones Keystone Laughlin, where we've, in certain intervals, constantly increasing that resource, and initial drilling at Carolina Bell, and we're looking forward to now also do drilling work at Jennings Pioneer, which again is a very exciting project immediately adjacent to an old historical mining operation.
If I may, I'd like to go from the United States to South Africa now, because I'd like to focus on this year's other big news, which is the proposed acquisition of White Rivers Exploration Proprietary Limited. Will truncate that to WRE. So what is the package like that Mr. Midas, Mr. Creasy, has collected and curated? And are they shallow gold?
Yeah, so Mark Creasy has, over quite a few years, put together a tremendous package of assets in South Africa. WRE also put out their own reports over the years on their own assessment of the drilling work that they have, and they estimated, roughly 37 million plus ounces of gold over their assets. So it is just a fantastic sort of group of assets. And what is very important is that the licenses that Mark has put together over the years, and it's a very dynamic process. He's had a lot more licenses, dropped some off, acquired new ones, and then did the work on it. They are all pretty much the shallow gold that he was targeting in South Africa. There's a misconception that all gold that's left in South Africa, which, by the way, is calculated to be over 1.2 billion ounces still, is now at extremely deep levels of, well over 2,000 meters plus. But that is incorrect. And almost all of Mark's work that he's done, and WRE's work, has focused on gold shallower than about 1,000 meters. So when you're talking about big gold projects with these sort of grades of 6 grams per ton upwards, 1,000 meters is extremely shallow for these big projects, and with those amount of ounces in the ground.
Okay, so I heard you say 37 million ounces. I'm just wondering, how many ounces could there be within your wildest dreams? You used to talk about 50 million plus ounces there.
I think the 50 million is probably coming from some of the old White Rivers exploration information that they've put out. The tenements that we are acquiring, and because some of it we did drop out, because again, we didn't want some of these licenses that are deeper than about 2,500 meters. The tenements that we've acquired as part of White Rivers are all on the shallow side. And look, the number seems staggeringly big. To be talking about 37 million ounces in the ground for a junior exploration company is really phenomenal. What gives us good confidence is the fact that these are based on numbers that has got drilling data behind it. So I am very optimistic that we can convert, again in a stage-wise process, but that we can convert these millions of ounces in the ground into independently assessed JORC-compliant resources, as we've done in the Carolinas. Because it's only really once it is independently done according to a JORC or other compliant code like 43101 that it really unlocks value for us, and that we can then package it up and attract major mining houses to come in with us.
Okay, but that's a little way off yet. Now, though, the million-dollar question: is it easy to get drilling equipment in South Africa, and how is it priced against USA per meter, for example? Is it half price?
Well, the good news is that South Africa has it is still a mining country, and it was the biggest producer of gold in the world. That's come off, but it does mean that there is a lot of drilling companies available. International assay houses are servicing really the rest of Africa out of South Africa, including SGS, and the same with the drilling. There's some very large drilling companies that is still based in South Africa and drilling in places like Zambia, Namibia, further afield, Tanzania, and upwards in Africa. And so the good news is that there is drilling equipment available, and there's very experienced Wits Gold drillers available. And you're absolutely right. All in cost, which include your cost of the assaying, the sampling, the geologist who does the work on it, and so forth, is almost about half of what it would cost us as an all-in cost compared to the US. And the major reason for that is just, I suppose, the cost of labor in South Africa, which is far less.
I think that some investors forget about how sophisticated the mining and exploration industry is in South Africa, because there are labs in South Africa as well. So one can assume that there would be no COVID-related delays for assays on drill cores from South Africa, for example.
Look, I think in 2020 there was probably COVID-related sort of delays, but at the moment, I believe from feedback from the labs is that it's business as usual. And as I said earlier, almost all of the major international assay companies like SGS, Bureau Veritas, ALS have got operations in South Africa. So it makes it a lot easier that we don't need to ship it away. And as is the case for the US, where we actually had to import that reverse circulation drill rig that we used from Canada, drilling machinery is readily available in South Africa.
So final question on WRE and Mr. Midas, Mark Creasy. How did he get such an exciting selection of concessions? Why were they not snapped up by the existing players at the time?
He's been working on it for a while. He's put together these packages. As I said, it's a dynamic process. He's dropped some, he's acquired new ones. And over the years, he spent well over $20 million in not only the licenses itself. He's also got an active joint venture, which we are now acquiring with Harmony Gold, called the Jelani joint venture. And more importantly, he's got what is probably considered the biggest drilling database on the Wits Goldfields. So that was, again, what he's acquired. And it's on the back of that drilling information, historical drilling information, some of it dating back to the 1970s, but still verifiable, he has been able to put together this package of licenses, which he then wanted to take forward very recently and list it as an entity by itself. In the process, in sort of looking at management teams, South African experience, also, I suppose, success in South Africa, he contacted Lexington, with Ed Nealon, of course, having founded Aquarius Platinum, which became the world's 4th biggest platinum mine. And Ed started it and developed it all the way into production. And basically, Mark contacted us and see if Lexington is interested to take this journey with him. And that's where we began what ended up a quite long process, but it's now pretty much completed, with Mark Creasy therefore becoming one of our, if not our biggest shareholder. And he's with us for the long run because he wanted to list it. He wanted to be in a listed vehicle where this can, really be taken forward. And now he's got that with Lexington, and he's supporting the company financially, as you could see from the £300,000 loan that he did while we were still effectively in that close period of the transaction. And Mark is in no way sort of planning to exit. He's planning to now get value through unlocking it and basically being a very large shareholder in Lexington, to make his money that way. Because there's also a misconception that he's ventured this into Lexington for a profit and now he's exiting. He spent significantly more of his own cash into getting it to this point than we did the deal in shares for. So he's very much in it for the long run.
So you've mentioned cash there. Quite recently, you had a capital raise. So what was the percentage of stock taken up by existing shareholders? Of course, is always an indication of support.
Yeah. Look, we are extremely fortunate that with Lexington, we've got a very loyal shareholding base. A lot of that comes from previous successes, as I mentioned, it with Aquarius Platinum, also in other companies where we've returned money to shareholders and so forth. And as a net result, we've got a very large loyal shareholding base, which is extremely important for us because at the end of the day, we work for those shareholders. And it's because of their ongoing support that we were able to place, I would say, more than 70% of this recent financing with existing shareholders. And it's also the reason why in current market conditions, where I see some companies doing 40, even 50% discounts, we actually placed the money and did the capital raise at a slight premium to the market. And again, it is because of the support of our existing shareholders and them believing in where we are taking Lexington and also the assets that is coming in through White Rivers Exploration.
Yeah, interesting that you did manage to get a premium to market for the new shares. And as you said there, strong support of shareholders. But why the long maturity of the warrants?
Again, this is to reward our shareholders long term, and also unlocking value out of any exploration project is a slightly longer term event. And therefore, over time, we believe that our loyal shareholders, long-term shareholders, will be significantly rewarded. And that's why we did the longer maturity date on these warrants.
So finally, there's an awful lot going on, Bernard. How are you going to keep overheads low?
Look, I think this is a very important matter for us in Lexington, because it is one of the reasons we believe that we've got a long sort of and strong shareholder following, is that shareholders know that money with us as a management team goes into the ground. There's no inflated fees anywhere. There's no expensive office. Actually, we've got no office. It's all virtual. And I would ask anybody to go and look at our annual report, go look at the salaries that the board is being paid. And I think that shows where the money is going. Money is going into the ground and not into a lifestyle for people. And I think that's significant differentiation between some other companies and us, is that every single cent is turned over 3 times, and we make it work for us, and we unlock value by putting the money into the ground.
The money going into the ground. Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Bernard Olivier, Chief Executive of Lexington Gold. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah.